distance, you get used to living in that kind of difficult environment. You start to really enjoy it. You don't have phones or devices. Kind of like going to war. It's like you worry about sun up and sun down and looking after your mates.
Yeah. Good as Golds, the official Gold's Gym Australia podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Good as Golds podcast. You are here with Em and Cal.
Yep.
On today's episode, we have the pleasure of chatting with Mark Wales. Mark is former SAS, Survivor contestant, businessman, and just all-round legend.
We chat about all things hitting rock bottom, reality TV shows, frat parties, and finding love. A man of many talents, Mark Wales.
Mark, how are you?
Good, thanks, guys. How you doing?
So good.
Yeah, well, very well.
We're doing well. Talk to us before we even start anything at all. Tell the people exactly who the Mark Wales is.
Oh, well, I was a career soldier. So I was born in West Australia, joined the Army, spent about 17 years in there and did a long stint in the SAS. And, went deployed a lot, saw a bit of combat and then left the SAS and built a second career in business, and that's what I do now. I have my own business and practice, and I really enjoy, I guess, helping people just with some of the insights I took from my time in combat and in the military. So that's what I do.
Rad. And I guess, I mean, that's why you are on the podcast today, and we're going to be touching on those points as well. But yes, we're going to talk about building resilience.
Yeah, I want to know, firstly, Mark, tell us exactly what you think resilience, like what does resilience mean to you first and foremost?
Well, to me, resilience means that you have capacity to absorb all the blows that come at you in life. And there are quite a few. There might be social impacts, it could be health impacts, all the things that happen to you that you view as not being kind of optimal. If you've got good resilience, you can adapt around those challenges rather than get stopped by them. I think when you've got poor resilience, those things can stop in your tracks. And I think there's many layers to it. I think there's a social layer, a psychological layer, a physical layer. And so it shouldn't be viewed as one thing. It's just a series of interconnecting skills and layers that you have that kind of protect your health and well-being.
Sweet. Can you run us through a time, Mark, where I guess you hit rock bottom and you had to either, build resilience or use what you had?
Like, we're really going in hard here. Like, let's just go straight up.
Yeah.
Tell us straight up. Like, no warm up. You just get in there.
So I think, for me, I had built my own resilience over years as a soldier. You just get that incremental exposure to new things that that build your capabilities. You're just a little bit uncomfortable all the time. And after a decade or so, that creates a pretty strong shield, I guess.
Yeah.
And then for me, when I went away on my first tour of duty in Afghanistan, some of the the traumas of warfighting are really impacted me hard. And when I came home, I had some of the mental illness issues that come with that, PTSD and depression. And so I really had to rally myself together to tackle those issues because I wasn't trained to do it. I didn't know what they were really. I wasn't given a lot of training around those things, and it was hard to know how to deal with it. So that was probably one time I remember thinking, shit, I need to get my act together.
Yeah. I'm not doing so well, probably.
Yeah, it was hard. It was a hard time.
I like what you said before, like uncomfortable all the time.
That's actually a really, really good point to take away, I guess. It's like, do you like that kind of tiny little bit of uncomfortability at all times? Like, are you constantly always trying to push yourself to that tiny little bit where you are that uncomfortable state? Yeah,
I think, and the analogy I use is like, you don't go from zero to running a marathon in 24 hours. You do a 2K and a 3K and a 5K run, then you do a half marathon. So you've got these constant steps that you take as you slowly build yourself. And I think some of the mistakes people make that are common is just that lack of patience about how long that can take to develop yourself or to develop those skills. It's better to think of it as a longer game that you do consistently. in small chunks rather than I'm going to take big leaps quickly. Sometimes I think people really underestimate what they can do in 10 years and they kind of overestimate what they can do in 1 year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that constant exposure to just a bit of discomfort is what creates the growth.
I think like with, I guess, you going through your mental health journey, have you, like, from a young age, would you say that you have had any like mental health, I guess, issues, or has it been stemmed from obviously your time like through deployment?
Yeah, I was pretty lucky, and there are correlations between childhood traumas and then
Yeah.
war traumas have basically result in a high probability of mental illness. So
Yeah.
I understand that, but I didn't really have that at all. I had a pretty good childhood. So
Awesome.
these stemmed mostly just from my deployments, and that's what kind of, I was ready for the fighting, but I wasn't ready for the impact of the fighting on me psychologically.
What did you, when you got back home, were you helped in any way, I guess, or were you kind of like, okay, I need to figure this out on my own? Like who was there for you and who was able to kind of help you through that? Or was it a bit of a Mark Solo episode where you're just trying to work through it by yourself?
I had this great fear that I would lose what I'd worked so hard to achieve, and that was a trusted position in that unit, which is so hard to get into. It's you have to give up so much to get there. And I'd kind of gotten into the unit and earned myself a place there, and I was really worried that if I said, "Hey, I'm having psychological issues,"
Wow,
I would be taken out of operational roles, and so I hit it. I went and saw the base doctor and said, send me to a psychiatrist. This is what he recommended. We'll send you to a psychiatrist off base. There was very little incentive to communicate this to the Defence Force.
Yeah.
In fact, there was every incentive not to, because there were career impacts, there were reputational impacts, and there was a stigma attached to it, and I'm guessing it's been improved, but there really was a stigma attached to this type of illness. So I tackled my recovery basically separate to the military. I did it myself.
Yeah. And was there like daily practices that you had? I mean, on like while you were in deployment, did you have daily practices that would aid in assisting in mental health, or was it pretty much like your sole focus while you were, deployed was just, the mission at hand, say, whereas coming back, you then could implement some of those, mental health practices?
Well, part of it when you're over in a war zone is rationalizing the change in values that you get when you're in a new war zone. You're going to have to do things that you've been taught never to do, whether it's harm someone, ignore someone's suffering, look after your own people, and be ruthless and vicious if you need to be. That's very confronting. I'm not wired like that really as a person, but in a war zone, you have to have some of that. Otherwise, you just won't survive.
Yeah.
And so that, like, trying to rationalize that behavior is quite hard, but you've got to do it when you're over there, because if you don't, you won't be able to function properly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's creating that understanding yourself that, no, that was a different place with a different set of rules, and that's why I behaved the way I did. It was necessary to survive. And I think that forgiving yourself is an important step and a hard step, and I eventually did that.
That's huge. Yeah, forgiving. That's cool. I like that stuff.
And you've gone through something that not every person can relate to.
Right,
so
totally.
like for you personally, it would be really hard to talk to just any Joe Blow that's like, hey, actually, how are you going?
Yeah.
You're like, not okay. So, did you find that hard kind of coming back home and people asking, are you okay? Although they weren't professionals, they were probably your friends, your family. And it's like, no one actually understands, I guess, the extremes that you probably went through. Is that something that you struggled with, or you found that you loved the support through your family and friends, or?
Yeah, I had a lot of support from family and friends. The issue was a much broader one about society and how we choose to fight wars and where we send our soldiers to. Because in Afghanistan, initially there was a national interest, but after a decade or so, the importance of it really diminished. And there was no connection between what we were doing as soldiers in this war and the rest of our country. we were at war, full on all the time. People were dying. We were risking our life all the time. And you'd fly home and it was just business as usual.
Yeah.
It was surreal. It was utterly surreal.
Yeah, that is definitely something that's not, I guess, spoken about enough. So that's like, thank you, Mark, for like actually speaking about it, because, you know, I think a lot of soldiers don't talk about it enough. And, you know, and it is personal, right? So it's like, if you don't want to talk about it, completely understood. So like for you, Mark, it's pretty incredible that you're like, hey, look, I'm putting my hand up. I want to talk about this because, you know, I'm here to help another soldier that might think that, you know, like you just have to brush it under the rug.
The easiest thing in the world would be for me to sit back in this little bunker and not say a word about it. Honestly, that would be the easiest thing in the world. And no one would benefit from that at all. So I think, and when I went on the TV show Survivor a while back, I started to kind of get over myself a bit. I'm like, hang on a second. You're worried about saying something because you're worried about looking bad, but really it's not about you. This is about all the other people that might face a similar issue or need help or want to know about the experiences that you face or want to be educated on some of the experiences that soldiers face. So once I realized that, I got a lot better at sharing. I don't care as much now about necessarily how I look. It's more about who I can help.
Yeah, getting the message across and being an advocate for it too. I think. Being the voice for something that's usually. I mean, I don't know the first thing about. Probably. Yeah, totally. It's like I don't know the first thing about going to war. You hear about people deployed and then people being withdrawn or countries that are at war. What does that look like? But I think it's an epic. Especially like someone in your position who has been on Survivor, World's Toughest Race, to then put a face to someone who is advocating for it. So I think that's epic.
Do you find that when you were kind of going through maybe like the darkest times through your mental health and mental illness, did you find that you wanted to move your body? Did you find that you wanted to just lay down in a a dark space, or where were you kind of at? Yeah, in a bunker. Where were you kind of at with when you were at probably your darkest point? Were you wanting to keep moving your bod? Like where were you at?
So there was a couple of things. One was I was drinking more than I should have been. So that was, that's a kind of form of self-medication, I think.
Yeah.
And there was a drinking culture in the army as well. But, you know that stuff's not good for you if you're facing any sort of mental challenges. So that was kind of one block that was there. And then I think depression especially, you get this sense, you get quite flat. Like I didn't really feel anything really. And so sometimes it was hard to get excited about anything because I'd just been, in that type of environment that really can dull your senses. So it took a bit of time and patience and effort just to try and bring back those routines and habits that I knew were good for me. So that regular exercise, trying to get good sleep and trying to eat well. Those three things really actually helped quite a bit as a baseline.
At what point, like how long ago were you at your darkest point, Mark?
Oh, that would have been over 10 years ago. But I've gone up and down too. So I faced a hurdle after my first combat tour, which was 2007. And I kind of repaired myself enough so I could keep my job and keep going back.
Yeah.
And every kind of deployment something else would happen or someone would be killed. And I'd find myself grappling with the same kind of issues.
Yeah.
And by the time I'd finished in the army, I'd done a lot of tours. I think I'd done 10 tours of duty to various places, East Timor and Afghanistan. So my 20s were really quite hard. And my mum had died when I was 23 and I spent the rest of my 20s away, with the unit trying to partake in a war, in what eventually became a losing war. And so when I walked away from that, I was like, holy shit, that's been a lot. And I think, that was in about 2010. I was saying, I think I've overdone it. I'll need a rest. And that eventually led to me leaving the army because I chose another path I thought I could do in the US and get away with well.
Yeah.
I want to just quickly repeat something you said before, which I think is like it stemmed off it great. You said like you were constantly just repairing yourself. And I think we as humans do that and even you said you were so young, like 23.
Yeah.
Repairing yourself, going through issues and like you said, like hard times, and I feel as though we do that. We band-aid it, right? You just like get a band-aid, put it over. Oh, I'm good
Everything's
today.
okay. Yeah,
And then
exactly.
you keep moving on. But then you how much can someone endure? And I think it comes back to resilience of like, if you build that, you then can continue to push through. But like, yeah, that's hectic.
Yeah, but I think as well, there is a place for that too. There is a place for just pushing through and doing a band-aid job on yourself because you've got to stay afloat or you've got to keep
Yeah,
fighting.
well, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, I actually think there's a place for it. I don't think...
You've got a job to do, so you can't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that applies to some extent in everyone's life. Sometimes you don't have time for your own personal wellness. You've just got to crunch through and get through that next barrier. And then you've got to say, all right, I need time to repair. As long as you have awareness, then you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something, you know, that we don't always kind of stop and think about, really, do we? Like, we just don't stop when there is something that we're faced with challenges. We just end up continuously pushing, and then you get to a point where you do break and you do hit rock bottom.
Yeah, and even reflecting and just like, oh, how long have I been pushing through for this? Yeah.
And that's it. Like you just said, Mark, you know, you were in deep in the army for so long. At what point? What was the tipping point? Like, what was the point you were like, I'm done, I'm out?
It was when I left the SAS, and I'd spent 6 years there, and I was a troop commander, which was a great role. You're on the ground, planning, leading missions. Really good role. You're really at the coalface in that job. And then when I went to a training academy, I went to Duntroon as the chief instructor. I was there going like, it's kind of that fork in the road. It's like, do you go back and try and climb the ranks, knowing that every time you go up, you're getting a bit further from the coalface, or do I kind of take what I've done and run with it and do something else? And I actually thought back to when I was a kid, and I'm like, the whole reason I joined the military was to go to the SAS and to hopefully lead a team in war, and I've done that. So I was kind of like, look, mission's achieved. Time for something else. And that's when I really switched. And that was a smart decision. I still am really happy I did that.
Yeah. And so let's go through a timeline. So you finished with the SAS. Did you have any downtime, or were you straight back into the next thing?
You mean once I'd left the unit?
Yes.
Yeah. So I went to that training academy, and I was kind of straight back into, it's a fairly high tempo role as well. But I found I'd exhausted myself to the point where I could only work kind of half days. I was there, but I was not really present for half the day. So I was just so exhausted. And so that's an issue too. I was really trying my hardest to do a good job, and I wasn't doing that good a job because I just was too tired.
Yeah.
So I took the time after that to really, when I went to business school in the US, I took the time to kind of rest and repair.
What does rest and repair look like for you, Mark?
I want to know.
Are you sitting, or are you actually? Because I feel like you're a mover. You're always going.
Yes and no. Like I'll sit here static for a long time, like waiting for that thing that I'm interested in. And then when it arrives, I'll really jump on it and really run hard, and then I'll stop. And I think, I think the book I just did was a good example of that. I was kind of like twiddling my thumbs for a bit, just thinking about it, going, I think I want to do this. And then when I decided to do it, I really jumped on it hard and really threw everything into it. And after about 6 months, it was, the bulk of it was done. And that's, I kind of like to do things in sprints. I'll sprint hard for a bit and then I'll stop. And that works for me.
And can you give us an insight of what going to the States and doing like a brief insight on business school? How long were you there for? What did it look like?
Yeah, and why did you want to go to business school?
Good question. I'd always wanted to go to the US. I wanted to go, when I was a youngster, I wanted to go over and play American football. But I joined the army instead.
Let's go.
My parents,
you are a big unit.
I know. You look like you could be in the NFL.
I know you can't, if you're listening, you can't see him, but go and check how big Mark is. He is massive. I want to be him.
Definitely someone to look up to.
I wanted to go to the US and play footy there, and I didn't. I went to the military, but I'd always had my eye on the US because it's such they lead every major industry in the world, just about.
Yeah.
And so when I thought about jumping careers, I was like, gee, I should go study business school there because that'll give me 2 years kind of time off as a student to think about my future, and I'll be getting trained up at the same time. Yeah. And it'll just be a hell of an adventure, which it was. I had to apply for it. Took me a long time to get the study and the test scores and the interviews done.
Yeah.
And when I finally got accepted, I flew over to the US and spent 2 years there full time, just studying. It was bloody good fun to be out of the military and just a new environment.
Oh, I bet.
And like, I guess like, is business school? Let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Is business school like an American college, or are we completely off the mark here? Like, are we going to frat parties and stuff like that? Like, where are we at?
When I had that thought too, I'm like, surely that is just an exaggeration and it's just the movies and they don't actually do that. When I got to business school, I realized that the movies under exaggerate what actually goes on in those business schools.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, unbelievable.
Tell us about this. Because I'm thinking business school is like, for the people that aren't, I guess, going to college. Because how old were you, Mark, when you were at business school?
I was 32.
Yeah, so like, you think about being like in college, we're like 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
So 32 and you're here just living it up in a college like party. That is amazing.
It was bizarre. It was like I'd woken up from a dream and I'm like, what just happened in the last decade? And I'm like at business school.
Yeah.
And it was like being born again. It was really good fun.
Yeah. I'm thinking like, when I think business school, I'm thinking like a fresh iron pressed shirt and like tucked in, but obviously polo shirt. We're just rocking our laptop, just doing business things.
And like the second classes are shut. There's 5 different parties on in,
and you're straight into it.
6 different apartments and everyone's just going nuts. It's really good fun. It's really good fun.
So what was your end goal for business school? Where did you see yourself going?
I always wanted to do my own business. I wanted to run my own business in a small team. I just knew that would be good fun and it'd be difficult, but I didn't love the idea of the bigger companies as much just because I was worried about how that would feel having been a former warfighter and having that degree of freedom. But I applied for a consulting firm when I left business school because I knew that I kind of had enough knowledge about business to be dangerous to myself at that point. So I needed some more, tuition and experience. So I went to a consulting firm, and it was painful, but I was lucky to get it, and it was really good training, and that kind of gave me my foundational skills.
Do you think like when they saw like on your CV and they were like SAS, they're like, this is the guy we've been waiting. He's our guy.
We need him.
Well,
do you reckon that is like it assisted you?
It definitely helps. Like, and because they go, the way they recruit is they go, look, our best predicator of future performance is past performance. So we go back and look for a track record of excellence, no matter what the field is. Whether it's academics or law or whatever it is. As a soldier, like we look for that, and then we recruit based on that. If you can learn new skills, so that I think it helped.
Yeah, definitely. Because like that's, I guess you're learning teamwork, you're learning resilience, you're learning all of these things that in a professional matter, people really care for.
Yeah.
So you would have so much under your belt that, those qualities that, not everyone coming out of business school actually would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have a broad range of soft skills that a lot of people don't have. You've got experience in leadership. You've got experience in kind of empathy and team relations and interpersonal relations and working under stress. Those things are worth quite a lot. And I think if you can then learn the hard skills of business, which is, finance, accounting, operation, if you can learn that, you've got a good package.
A whole package, yeah.
Well, that's the best part. I reckon it's like when you come out of university or college or anything, like people you could have the highest ranking degree, but like if you don't have people skills, if you don't know how to work in a team, like you're not going to get it.
Some people could be incredibly book smart, but just lack life skills, full stop, and might not be up there, but I feel, I could just see you like
Yeah,
under the pressure cooker, and you're just like, this is fine. I've been under pressure. You don't even tell me. I'm crunching numbers here on Excel spreadsheets, but you're just killing it, Marky.
So how long were you at your consultancy firm for? And then what was next? Were you like, this is my time. I'm leaving and I'm turning the next corner.
Yeah, I was there for nearly 3 years, but the whole time I had a startup I'd built at business school, which I kind of kept doing on the side of my main job. And then in my third year in McKinsey, I saw that I was at winter in New York, and I'm like, oh, it's pretty cold here. And I saw that there was an ad for Australian Survivor back in, Samoa or wherever it was. And I thought, oh, wow, I could do that. And, hang out on a beach for a while. And so I applied for it, kind of not thinking I might get it because I know a lot of people apply for it. But I got through the first gate and I got an interview, and then I flew home for an audition. And I'm like, oh, shit, this might actually happen. And that was...
This is actually happening.
Yeah. And then I got on the show, and that kind of... It changed the course of, I guess, my life, because I met my wife there, and also it gave me the confidence to go and try and stand alone and do my own work. So it was a good thing. Yeah, it was a good thing.
Was this your first brush with reality TV? Like,
oh yeah, I didn't have you Google me, there was nothing. I didn't even have a Medicare card. I'd never had one. I didn't exist in the government.
I did not exist.
I did not exist.
So let's chat Survivor.
Yes.
You auditioned, you got the spot. How many people are in there with you, firstly?
So there's 24 contestants in the Australian version. Mm-hmm. And so I hadn't seen any of them until I after 2 months of talking to the production crew, I walk onto the set, which was a giant barge in the middle of the night, raining.
Oh my God.
In the Pacific Ocean, yeah. And I climbed up. I'm like, holy shit, this is the set, because they had all the coconuts and the gear. It was all laid out. And I was like, wow. And it felt like I was walking into another world. But I saw all these contestants sitting along the edge of the barge, and I'm like, oh, this is the team. And it was a really funny crowd. Like, there were all sorts. There were grandmas and
my God,
cowgirls, and
so another college frat party, basically.
Another
just
one.
walks
with treachery. Yep.
Yeah, just the oddballs. So, what actually made you want to even go on to Survivor?
Oh, just I knew it was a good show, and I just thought, this will be something totally different, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, ready for a change up.
Yeah, something different. And I wasn't that serious about it. Like, I applied not really thinking I would get through, and then the further I went, the more I was like, oh shit, now I really want to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know, is it everything that, like, are you actually surviving or are you fake surviving?
Funnily enough, there was almost no interference from the production staff at all.
I've always wanted to know this.
Yeah, there's like a banquet behind you that you just don't see.
I was waiting for them to go, like, cut, accommodation comes out, the catering trays, everything. And it was just like...
Massage, like...
No, we were sleeping there was one night we spent out there where we got 200 mils of rain.
No.
What?
20 centimeters of rain. And it was like sitting in a cold shower for a whole night. It was bad. Yeah, people had hypothermia. We just got utterly smashed. Yeah,
and they're just filming you do it.
They film, but 3 of their cameras broke in the rain. It was that much. There was that much rain.
Jeez.
Okay, in that point, do you think you have the advantage then over someone else who would be, they would have never had to probably deal with anything like this, whereas did you feel you had an advantage?
You have an advantage just in real terms. Like, it's going to be a little bit easier for you if you've endured the outdoors a lot.
Yeah,
but also, if you're weak in that environment, you're less likely to get voted out because people keep around the less threatening types.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
It's kind of a mismatched advantage, if you know what I mean.
Because did you play it like under the radar? You were just like, oh, I'm an accountant. I went to business school. Or did you play I'm actually an ex-SAS, and they're like, oh,
it's
like,
funny. Yeah, I didn't tell them I was a soldier. I basically said that I was, business, consulting, and then e-commerce based out of New York, and just built that whole story.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wasn't that set on keeping it a secret, but
Yeah.
the production were really excited. They're like, oh, you're not going to tell anyone, it's going to be a secret. And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
that's
Okay.
interesting. Yeah. And I'm like, I kept it a secret, but in hindsight, it was a mistake because I couldn't connect with anyone socially because there was this big part of my life missing that I couldn't talk about.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you just said as well before, which I got kind of, I don't know why I got excited about, but you met your wife. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, that's
Meeting,
amazing.
like,
Yeah.
in a TV show, meeting, like, was it connection? Like you saw her
Yeah,
when
was
you
it love
saw
at first
coconuts,
sight?
coconuts
she
barge,
was
and he
next to
like,
me on the barge, and I'm like, hey, she's pretty cute. And and then when we met on the island after we got there and started chatting, I just realized we were kind of cut from similar cloth, and she had
Yeah.
similar values and was doing her own thing. She was an endurance athlete and a former corporate lawyer, so she was a hard
Cool.
charger as well. Yeah, she's really takes things on.
That's awesome. And then did you guys get together on the show or was this after?
Not formally on the show. After the show, we caught up.
There
'cause
wasn't
we
a
actually,
love.
Yeah, we like struck up a romance after the show because we went on a road trip through the US and became a formal little romance.
A fun
Cute.
little hot couple. Reality stars. Here we
Exactly.
go.
I like
Showmance.
that.
I love that. Do you ever keep in contact with anyone? Like, did you ever, like, I guess, become friends with anyone on the show that, like, the series that you were on?
Oh yeah, there's quite a
Yeah.
few. It's a fun little
That's
alumni
awesome.
group. People still stay in touch and sledge each other. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty good friends with Luke Toki. Was on my season, who was went on to be a big kind of character in the series. And does a lot of TV work now. And there's a heap
Yeah.
of others that are just they're all top people. They're all a bit wacky, but they're good.
That's fine. Well, we're all wacky,
We are,
really.
Yeah.
We've all got a little bit of whack in us.
Oh, they're like double wacky, trust me.
Double wacky, like extreme. Was
Wacky squared,
like,
yeah.
when we watch it, right, like you're watching it at night time, and every time a challenge comes up, I'm just blown away because I'm like, how do they put together like a jigsaw puzzle seesaw in the middle of a tropical island and it just looks impeccable? Is it like you rock up not knowing what it is before and you just do the challenge, or do you know it beforehand?
No,
you
that's
can map it out.
that's what's great about it is they spend so much time setting it up, and then when we arrive, they just go, they explain it, and then they go,
That's
and it just runs.
roll the camera.
They don't interrupt. Like it just goes straight ahead, and it makes it a really good scenario. It feels quite real after a while. You're like, oh, this is a real scenario. But
Did you ever get to a point where you were like, this is now my life? Like, did you ever think that you were ever going to get off the island? Like, where? Because you know how, in reality TV, you end up kind of believing that this is then your life. Like Big Brother, people are like, it's only us forever. Like, no one's ever watching. So, like, did you find that ever happening? Are you like, all right, I'm ready to go home?
No, you start to get immersed in the scenario because
Yeah.
it becomes your existence. You get used to living in that kind of difficult environment. You start to really enjoy it. You don't have phones or devices or bills to pay. You're just sitting there just trying to survive it. It's kind of like going to war. It's like you worry about sun up and sun down and looking after your mates. And it was similar to that.
That's actually awesome. Well, I want to talk about your next little venture that you went on. So you went on the world's toughest race. Run us through this. What is that?
Yeah, this was a funny one. I think Sam does some adventure racing, which is like the long range expedition style racing.
Yeah.
And she'd seen the auditions coming up for the world's toughest race, which used to be a series back in the 90s, actually made by the same guy that created Survivor. It was this long range expedition, across Patagonia or Utah, these really epic races that people would do. And it had a huge following. And then I think it shut down in 2001 or something. And so they rebooted the show with Bear Grylls at the helm.
Yeah.
And we auditioned, you needed a team of 5, so 4 competitors and a crewie. And so Sam, I'm like, I'll do it with you. And Sam's like, you don't know how to adventure race. You don't have the endurance. And I'm like, come on.
Come on, give me a
I'm
break.
like, come on, give me a break. And so we auditioned for that and we got on. We were one of 65 teams.
Oh my
and
God.
Yeah, and I had to train for about 6 months. I did maybe anywhere from 5 to 7 hours a week training. So not tons of training, but I had to train consistently for 6 months to build my endurance up. And And we packed our gear up, went to Fiji, and it was a 700 kilometer 24-hour a day race. And
No.
yeah, it was
This
like
cannot
epic.
be real.
Yeah, it
700 kilometers.
Yeah, it was 700 kilometers. One of the legs was a 40 kilometer stand up paddle. Stand up paddle.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they said, "Oh, you'll have to learn stand up paddleboarding before you come." I'm like, "Oh yeah, they'll have like a
Couple of strokes.
30
Yeah.
minutes.
3 kilometer leg." And I got on, and they're like, "Yeah, this one's 40 kilometers." I'm like, "I'm sorry, did you say there must be a
Are you
zero
saying
on there?"
4 and 0? Is this what I'm actually hearing?
Yeah, it was epic. It was really.
Was it non-stop, like a race as in, there were legs, like if you finished, then you
Yeah.
got to leave before the next team?
Yeah, the clock was running the whole time, and
Wow.
yeah, it was between the islands. It was over the top of islands. We had to climb a 300-meter cliff of granite in the dark, and it was raining. It was pretty full on. Yeah, it was epic.
At what point were you like, I was not meant to be your partner, Sammy? Like, I was not. I don't think this was what I was cut out for.
She was worried. She's like, "Yo, you're gonna get this whole team kicked out." But I really made sure I did the hard work, and I did a couple of practice races.
Yeah.
And that was the opportunity to really fail and get things wrong. And I did. There was one race I could barely finish because my feet were that destroyed.
Oh.
Because there's particularly, like, you need to understand that your feet are going to swell a whole size, so your shoes need to be one size bigger. Like little things like that. If you haven't learned that in advance, you're really going to find it hard to get by.
Yeah. What was your most memorable? Let's go for both. Like Survivor, I'm sure there were many moments memorable, and World's Toughest Race. Give us you one for one. Most memorable moment on Survivor. Most memorable moment on the World's Toughest Race.
Most memorable moment on Survivor was climbing up the deck ladder on the side of the barge in the middle of the night in belting rain. And when I got up to the top, it was the whole set of Survivor with all the contestants, and I realized that was the start of it. I was like, holy shit. So that was super cool.
So you actually had to climb up it in order to even get to the barge.
Yeah,
Too bad
we all had
if
to
you couldn't
climb
get
up.
up
So
the top.
we'd been transferred out to the barge, and then we had to climb up, and I was
You're
wearing...
like, this is what I'm in for.
Yeah, and I was wearing my New York gear. I had like a leather jacket and snakeskin
Yes.
boots.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they throw you, like, whatever you're in, they chuck you. You keep on, right?
You're a castaway, so yeah, it looks like
Oh my God. Were you spewing at that point? Were you like, this is shit? Why
No,
have I chosen this?
I knew it was going to be rough, and the leather jacket was perfect for night because it was so cold. So it worked out
Yeah,
well.
actually, great choice. Wow, smart man.
Yeah, it was good.
What about World's Toughest Race? What was that? What was your fave?
Oh, World's Toughest Race, probably the start of that was epic because there were 60 teams and helicopters flying around, and we all kind of launched at once, and Bear Grylls was there cheering us on. That was pretty surreal. And then there was another point where
That's actually awesome.
yeah, it was great. And there was another point where we had to walk 10 kilometers across boulders to this cliff I was mentioning, and it was coming into dusk, and I could see the cliff, and I'm like, that is the biggest freaking cliff I've ever seen.
And then, you think they're going to make us climb it?
I was like, I'm not sure if I can actually climb that. And we clipped onto the side of that cliff. I think it was 8 p.m. and we didn't get off the ropes until I think it was about 3 a.m. It was just before dawn.
Nope.
Yeah, we were climbing for about.
No, I'm out.
We were climbing for 6 hours, and then we had to. We're up at 1,500 meters, and the water. We had to jump in a river and do like a 7K loop. The water was super cold, so people were getting hypothermia, and it was full on. But it was a really cool race. I just can't remember much of it because it was so tight.
Yeah, that's right. Callum, what show would you go on? Would you try out Survivor or World's Toughest Race?
100% Survivor. Yeah.
Yeah, I must admit I'd do the same.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I just feel as though it's like you said, where it's like the weak people get kept around.
Oh yeah,
Not saying-
it's anyone's
saying
game.
weak.
That means that you're going to be
But
kept around.
You can play immunity game. You can play the long game. You can play the nice guy. You can play the deceiver. At the end, it's.
Yeah.
Where did you end up getting? Like how
Placing.
far in?
I got about a third of the way through,
Yeah.
and I was kind of like, I'll get to the halfway point. So even me, I was like good at challenges. I was an all rounder in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and even I only got a third of the way through. So it's a really hard game to do it well. Like the people that get to the end, so there's a little bit of luck, but there's a lot of skill too.
Yeah.
We actually got an audience question which I want to ask you. It was, what's the toilet situation on Survivor? The listeners are dying to know.
Yeah.
Are you digging a hole? Like, is this what's happening? Or have you
What,
got a
banana
gorgeous
leaf?
little porcelain?
Yeah.
It's the only thing. Yeah, I was like, Portaloo, surely. But they have it's a drop toilet. It's literally just a hole in the ground with a
Yeah.
little seat on it. And they have just a fern fence around it. So it just looks like part of the landscape. And that's literally it. There's
Jeez,
nothing
they're
there.
not messing around, are they?
Yeah, I like that though.
Same.
That's like, it's reality, but it's
Oh, yeah.
actually decent reality. It's not like what I thought they'd give you a bit of
Yeah, agreed.
extra juice on the side. It's
Yeah.
like, you sleepy? Have a pillow.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah, exactly.
You just had a leather jacket that.
I was like, give me
Folded
my
up
pillow.
perfectly.
Yeah.
We had another question come through, which is, how often were the cameras on when on Survivor? Did you notice them all the time?
It's super weird when you start, because every conversation that's happening, there are 3 crew members. There's a cameraman, with quite a big camera mounted on like a little harness. There's a sound guy, so he's holding a boom, like just into the conversation so he can hear. And there's a producer that's standing taking notes and listening to the conversation through audio.
Oh my God. Can you imagine having a mental breakdown and just this guy straight in your
Sorry,
face?
can you repeat that one more
It's super
time?
weird. It's super weird,
Oh.
yeah. And,
Was
and
there
they,
ever...
they have to
Sorry,
be
you go.
really on the ball, because they can't ask you, they don't interact with you. So they can't ask you to,
Yeah.
say that bit again. Like,
Exactly.
if they miss it, they miss it. So they've got to really be paying attention. But it makes for really interesting, TV. Yeah, it's good.
I
Yeah, you
bet
got to be
they're
quick
probably-
around here.
They're probably scheming because, like, you'll be on your own, say something, and they're like, he mentioned, John, let's get him and him together in a sticky
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Another audience question is, what's the first thing you ate when you got off the show?
Yeah, dying to know that.
Yeah.
Oh, they gave me, they had like 2 giant cheeseburgers waiting for me with chips. And I was like, this is the best meal I've ever had. So
Yeah.
I think I lost 9 kilos in about 3 weeks. So I was pretty,
Oh, God.
I lost a bit.
Yeah,
lost
because
a
it's
fair bit.
how long is the whole? How long were you there for? Like how many days? and nights?
64 days, but I think they've shortened it a little bit to like 59 days maybe.
Still.
So yeah,
incredibly
it's a
hard.
while.
That
Yeah,
is
it's like
amazing.
2 months. It's like, a long time.
Oh my God. Well, we've got some questions. You just don't even think about it. We're just going to ask them straight up, and you
Right.
just straight off the top of the bat, okay?
Right.
All right, the first one is, if you could do one exercise for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Deadlifts.
Love
Ooh.
that answer.
My man.
Yeah, love that
My man.
answer.
Who would your dream fitness coach be?
Michael Jordan.
Ooh,
Wow, that's 2 from 2 from
Yeah.
you, Mark. Really good.
that is.
Really good. Here we go. Well, this is a good one. Stuck on an island with one food source, what is it?
Cheeseburgers. Or does it have to be a natural food source?
No, you do. No, you do. You.
We'll take cheeseburgers. We'll take
I'll take
cheeseburgers.
cheese. It's an all round. It's every food group in one thing.
Who is the most inspiring person to you?
Optimus Prime.
Yes.
Fictional
That
character, but very inspiring.
Can you do like an Autobots? Because I feel you've got the voice.
You do have the voice.
Can you do like an auto?
Fate really calls upon us at a moment of our choosing.
Okay.
I love this so much. Who do you think is the best person to work out with?
A CrossFit coach.
Ooh. I
And
like that.
Of course, on the back of that. Oh, you can
Actually,
elaborate.
I would have
go.
said actually, because I've done a lot of boxing. I think top boxing coaches are better because it's a skill and it's a really great fitness thing as well. So I've always loved boxing, probably more than CrossFit.
Love. Yeah. Cool.
And then, of course, who would be the worst person to work out with?
Anyone who's very good at yoga and tries to make me do too much yoga.
You're not limber? You're not a limber man? Or what's going on there?
Our warm-ups normally are just like staring at the bar and going straight into the, I've got to do more work now. I'm not getting any younger, so I've got to do more warm-ups now.
Please do. Please
Yeah.
get limber, get stretching so there's no injuries when we get older. This is our last one. Biggest challenge ahead of you this year. What's coming up?
Biggest challenge this year, I think, is just staying agile while we're in lockdowns, because we do have, I mean, most of the work Sammy and I were doing involved events, so we don't have events happening at the moment. So we've both had to adjust the work that we're doing. But it's also a great opportunity, because for me it was like writing a book, and now I'm going to do some online coursework. It's stuff that I've always wanted to do that now I have the opportunity to do it. So staying agile, staying positive, knowing that this will pass like everything else. And when it does, the economy will come back on a tear, and you better be ready for it.
Oh, we're ready. We're ready.
Yeah.
Mark, where can people find you if they want to look you up? Whereabouts are you?
I am on Instagram, mark.a.wales, and also my website, markwales.com.au.
Yes, and everyone, please stay tuned for our next little episode, because this is where we delve into SAS, all about your book. We're really excited. So stay tuned, everyone. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys.
You're amazing.
Love what you're doing.
See you soon.
Wow. I think I really need to go on the Survivor show.
Yeah. Do you think you would survive?
I would. I don't think I'd win. I would survive.
I don't think that I would win either. He was explaining that, like, you have to be a bit of a dark horse, and that's not me.
Yeah, and he said like the weakest people
and guess
lose,
what?
and you're not weak. So okay.
What an episode. If you guys want to follow along our podcasting journey,
please do like, subscribe, leave a review.
And just follow along. Get amongst it. We've got loads of special guests coming up. We're excited to share with you. So jump on.
Tune into the next episode. Peace and love.
Bye-bye.